Hello, everyone. Hello there. Hi, how's it going, everyone? How are you all doing today? Are you all connecting and engaging right now? There, people are connecting. Yes. All right. First of all, I want to clarify that this entire broadcast will be in Spanish and then we'll post it with English subtitles. That's because we're talking about the event in Spain, so we're going to speak in Spanish. Yeah. I was just saying that the whole broadcast will be in Spanish to keep it in a single language. Since we're going to talk about Spain, about the event in Spain, we're going to speak in Spanish, and there will be subtitles later when we upload it, subtitles in English. That's what I was saying. Although actually, the event will be in the Basque Country, so we should be speaking Basque, which none of us can do. Impossible. So, but anyway. Well, so welcome everyone, and I wanted to introduce Agostina. I wanted to introduce hello everyone. Actually, Karina Titon should be here right now doing the broadcast. I don't know where she is. I don't know where she went. But anyway, she put us in charge and doesn't really know what needs to be done. So I'm the one presenting. I'm the substitute, let's say. So I'm the substitute. What can you do? I was supposed to introduce Matías. I didn't know how, and well, Abba. So that's how we started. But anyway, as always, I don't really know the answers to the questions I have to answer. So Algo will remind me of the things I forget to mention, so I don't go off on tangents in my explanations. And well, this meeting is basically to get us a bit in sync with the next HOLI NADA and Rainbow Bridge that we're going to do in Spain. If you remember, on the website we had said that the intention was to do it in Ibiza because there were a lot of people who opened up to help us make the next HOLI NADA and Rainbow Bridge possible on the island of Ibiza, which for me was very symbolic because the island of Ibiza is not only a party place and for electronic music parties, right? We're talking about electronic music and all that. It's a place that is obviously an emblem in Europe for electronic music. But also because it's an island that in ancient times was dedicated to fertility deities. So that's why it's called Ibiza, which is the island of Bes, right? Ibis. Bes was the god of fertility in Egyptian mythology, and when the Phoenicians traveled through the Mediterranean, they built temples to fertility sites, and Ibiza was the island of fertility. So birth, the force of creativity, creation itself, is present on that island. However, it was impossible to manage to organize an event there because obviously it's a very complicated month. There are a lot of permits and it takes a lot of time to be able to organize something there in Ibiza. So one of the key things we want to express at this time is that if it's very difficult, if there are a lot of obstacles, then actually that's not the way to go. So we opened ourselves up to simplicity, to simplifying the message, and to having doors open for us in the places where we truly need to go. And that's how, Agos, the story better. That's how the Basque Country opened up to us. Yes, it was really magical when the Basque Country opened up. Well, there's someone from the network, Irene, whom we've been in contact with for a long time, and she has a beautiful place called Malura, and it's all of it is an honor. They honor Mother Earth deeply, and when we started talking with her,
which is why very connected. And now Mati is going to tell you why this year it's the Path of the Dragon again. we started talking with Irene, and suddenly we began to notice a lot of synchronicities with the path of the dragon, mountains, rivers that are nearby. They are constantly honoring the gods of the Basque region, and it's very connected to this energy. And honestly, it completely called to us, and well, the place is beautiful. So that's more or less a brief summary of the story.
Yes, well, it came up very last minute, but all the signs pointed to the fact that we had to go to that territory. And the intention today is to explain a bit about why we are going to that territory and why the next HOLI NADA Rainbow Bridge, I felt it had to be done in the territory of Spain. And it has to do with all the situations that have happened over this last month, and also with the messages received during the gathering in Yucatan at Chichen Itza. For those who weren't there, or for those who were and don't remember, when the weaver, my higher self, was speaking on one of those days of the Rainbow Bridge, he talked a lot about the role of Spain within the entire planetary network. Why is it important? And one of the messages that was given in relation to Spain is follow the white rabbit, right? Like in the story of Alice in Wonderland, follow the white rabbit, or in the Matrix, right, which is also part of that story. Why the word Spain comes from hisper, which is a Phoenician word from the Middle East that means rabbit, right? So Hispania means land of rabbits, because obviously the peninsula was full of rabbits when the first settlers from the Mediterranean arrived, and so they called it that. It's a land full of rabbits, that's Hispania. So the Iberian Peninsula, the land of the Iberians, came to be known as that land of rabbits. And during the period of the Spanish crown's expansion in the 1400s, towards the end of the 1400s, it began to expand into colonies in Africa, or also colonies within Europe itself. It's also important to remember that Spain was not only in Iberia during that time, but it also expanded into Belgium and the Netherlands, Austria. There were many territories in Europe that also belonged to the Spanish crown. And obviously, in their search for how to obtain inform resources in the Indies, they ended up discovering the Americas, expanded throughout the Americas, across the Pacific, and even colonized the Philippines, which made Spain become the empire on which the sun never sets. So it was like the largest empire, rivaling the British Empire for territories all over the world. And during the formation of Yucatan, it's important to remember that the Spanish first arrived on the island of Santo Domingo, but they ultimately settled permanently on the American continent in Yucatan, right? In the area of Cozumel, in the area of Cancun, Chichen Itza, Tulum, all that region is where they began to settle, where they encountered the Maya. So the first cultural exchange in the land of the rabbits is where, in the circle of the crater where the asteroid fell, which changed the course of human history, where the power of Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan for the Maya, who is the feathered serpent, changes, who rises, who in that territory ascends to the heavens with the information from the asteroid, from the genetic change that occurred in the history of humanity. So it's like the rabbit, where does it go? It goes into the hole. That transformation arrives there. So there is a hidden symbolism in how the history, the genetics of Europe reaches the Americas by touching the Chicxulub hole, which is created by the crater of the Chicxulub asteroid. So the weaver began to talk about follow the white rabbit, because when you see where the white rabbit touched the earth, that's where all the holes started to be dug and where time and space began to be crucified. That is to say, the whole heart of Europe began to be crucified in different parts of the earth.
How?
By placing the cross, right? Through the Inquisition, through colonization first, then the Inquisition, the church arrives and begins to crucify every temple, every culture, through the white rabbit from the land of rabbits. So the message was to be able to go back to the origin of where time was broken, the crucifixion of time, solstices and equinoxes, since all ancient cultures followed the solstices and equinoxes. From the moment Europe became Christian, the crucifixion came to mean Christ. People stopped observing the solstices and equinoxes, stopped perceiving the sacred path of time, and we became crucified from another perspective, through suffering, through trying to escape this reality in order to reach heaven. Sin. Well, the whole story that we already know from the Inquisition. So all the temples and cultures end up crucified through Spanish colonialism, and we never leave the cross of time. The flow of time is broken. And that's where the symbolism of the rabbit running with the clock into the hole comes from, because he's late, right? And suddenly everything becomes meaningless. That's why in the weaver's message he said, follow the white rabbit. If you want to heal time, you have to go back to the origin by walking backwards, following Alice.
Right, okay.
So, well, there's a lot of hidden symbolism within that story of following Spain. And that's why when the message was to follow the white rabbit, the idea is that the next step is then to go to Spain.
Right, okay.
From the point of the rabbit hole, the hole of the dragon of Quetzalcoatl, of Cuculcan in Mexico, we head towards Spain. And so to go to the origin of the Iberians, to the origin of the true power of that territory that was free from the crucifixion of Rome for a long time, which territory was the hardest for the cross of Rome to conquer? That territory of the Iberians that could not be conquered was Euskadi, Euskal Herria, that is all the land of Euskadi that we now call the Basque Country. For those who don't know much about the history of the Basques, I don't know much about their history either, but it's a people that don't quite fit into history, whose languages origins are unclear and whose roots are very similar to Armenian. I mean, just imagine Armenia. There's a lot of connection with the peoples of the Caucasus, the Iranian peoples, but they're tribes, very small ones that survived in the Pyrenees and in the northern part of Spain, right?
From Iberia.
And that they're mixing with the Celtiberian peoples, that is the Celtic peoples from the north, the Viking peoples, meant that this specific group, which has a different genetics, a different history, a completely different language, a completely different tradition. They were like the Picts of Iberia. Who were the Picts? The Picts were the ones who lived in Scotland.
Really?
I don't know if you've ever heard that the Romans saw the Picts as so savage that they preferred to build a wall, Hadrian's Wall, to separate England from Scotland, because they said, we just can't conquer these people because they're savages, they're impossible to control. The same thing happened with the Basques in Spain. So it was a people that Rome had a very hard time conquering. And within what is this peninsula, therefore, it is one of the peoples within the Iberian Peninsula that was the hardest for Rome to take during the conquest. And therefore, it is a point of entry for all the power from the north. If we look at the territory of Spain, when we look at Spanish territory, we see a head, right? Europe is like a person, and the head of that person is the Iberian Peninsula. You can clearly see the face, yes, in profile, the face in Portugal. You can see the nose, right? And at the point where you breathe, that's where Lisbon is. So we can also see the chin in Faro, yes, in the south of, and the third eye or the forehead would be in Galicia. If we look from that point of view, the face looking toward the Americas, then we can also see that the part, this part here of the jaw would be Murcia, right, in Spain. It would be this part of Murcia. Therefore, if we continue from Galicia to the north, what do we find? That the Basque Country is right in the area of the crown that connects with the cerebellum, right? And that's where the spine begins. The part of the knee, of the neck, in the spine, the cervical vertebrae, which are the Pyrenees before entering France. So what does the Basque Country represent? It is the entire region that maintains the balance of Spain. It is basically what the cerebellum. The cerebellum is that part that maintains the axis, the balance, that measures distance in the way our body functions. And it also represents the direct entry point of the divine ray into the spinal column. Therefore, it is a portal for information from the entire north, from the whole spirit of the North Pole, into the consciousness of Iberia, which then descends into the pineal gland in Madrid and the pituitary gland in Montserrat in Barcelona. Ooh. It is the entry point for that spiritual force. Ooh. Therefore, for the door of light to suddenly open for us, breaking free from the crucifixion of Roman time within the land of the rabbits, going back to the origin of that power is a key that tells us the next calibration of time-space must take place within this territory at that point where the ray of light enters, right? From the North Pole. And, well, there we had talked about the path of the dragon.
Yes.
So the question was, why the path of the dragon? The dragon means observer. It is a guardian. It is the one who observes. So it is not a mythological creature. We talk about the mythological creature as if it were a reptile with wings and so on. That's a cultural worldview of what a dragon is, right? Just like we might say an angel is a person with wings, right? It's an interpretation of a concept. For example, angel means messenger, right? Angelo means messenger. Therefore, in ancient times, how were messages sent? With birds, with doves. So a messenger, which was the Holy Spirit, a dove that flies and carries a divine message to another place. So the interpretation is a being with wings. In the case of the dragon, we have given it the cultural image of visualizing it as that extra creature, like with different parts from different animals, but they are guardians of sacred places. And why are they guardians? Because they stare intently and see beyond what is, beyond what appears to be. So they can see your truth, they can see everything, they see right through your being. What is the greatest dragon of all? It is the star that never moves, which is not Polaris. For us, Polaris is the North Star because it shows us where the where is now pointing north, right? In other words, our planet, as it rotates in the precession of the equinoxes, the North Pole, with its 23 degrees, points every several thousand years to a different star, right? So every 2,000, 4,000 years, the pole star changes. But in this circle, it makes what happens. There is an axis. That axis never moves. The North Pole keeps moving, marking a direction, but it's like a round table. But on that round table, where there are different nights marking the North Pole, the center of the table is fixed. And that center of the table, when we look from the North Pole upward to the north, there is a star called Alpha Draconis. That is the original observer. And it is the reference point for the entire sky. It is the reference point that lets us see how the Earth is rotating. The North Pole keeps rotating. So that's why the constellation above, the one that is always fixed, is the constellation of the dragon, Draco. And what does this dragon represent? This constellation circles around as if it were a kind of spiral at the North Pole, encompassing the 12 constellations. The entire constellation of the dragon points all the way around the round table, which are the 12 nights, let's say, of the zodiac, as they used to say in the cartoons. They are the 12 animals. That's why it's called the zodiac. It's the circle of animals. They are the different animals that are in this circle of the path of being. So what is the path of the dragon? The path of the dragon is to travel through each of the points of this circle, acquiring the potentials of each of these animals until you find the original point of observation. That is when I become aware of myself. That is the dragon. When I activate the dragon, which in other cultures is called Kundalini, right? It is when I pass through all the chakras of my being and ignite the higher vision that allows me to see everything as one. So the traditions combined all those concepts into the figure of a dragon, which is that serpent that spreads its wings when it opens its eye to observe absolutely everything. It is actually an observation of how the Earth moves in relation to the stars, and therefore how we move in relation to reality, right? That is why the path of the dragon is an internal journey that all beings undertake every time the Earth turns, every time a year is completed, a cycle in that crucifixion of solstices and equinoxes. And well, following the messages from Yucatan, the point is, we have to go to this land where the northern dragon enters, where the North Star points, bring down that fixed star, walk the path of the dragon, and fix something with the rabbit, which I don't know what it is. So I think that's going to be the adventure of what we're going to find in the Basque Country. So, Mati, we could say that the HOLI NADA mission is very connected to the path of the dragon, but also one of the questions that comes up a lot is, what is the place of HOLI NADA in the whole planetary mission, in all the planetary work we've been doing for a long time, from Harwun, Unromamor, Yosoi, and now HOLI NADA? It's like, well, everything we've been talking about is that there's a bridge between the heart and the mind that's broken, or that it's misaligned, it's out of sync. Why is it out of sync? Because the entire planetary network, which is our head, our mind, is out of rhythm with the heart. Time and the network are not harmonized, they're not in the same frequency. So we need to recalibrate the rhythm of time with the physical network that we are manifesting. And on the planet, what is that called? It's the cross of solstices and equinoxes. That is the position of the Earth at the 4 moments of the year that involve transformations and changes. In all ancient cultures, the cross of time, solstices and equinoxes, mark the seasons, the times for planting, for harvesting. In a way, we are crucified in time. We are biologically aligned with the cycles of solstices and equinoxes. And in order to live reality in a harmonious way, we have to calibrate the heartbeat of the heart of time with our own inner heart. And that means finding the rhythm, the right beats, the dance of time. it's the constant calibration of the music from a place of emptiness. To calibrate the emptiness, to calibrate ourselves, and to begin this calibration of time. So what is the intention of HOLI NADA? To create a culture of always gathering in strategic places within the network, to calibrate heart and mind, network, time, and to begin making that balance again, to move away from a conceptual crucifixion and calibrate ourselves in the real crucifixion, which is the movement of the earth, the natural rhythms of the planet, to be aligned with the harmonious rhythm of the cycles of the planet. Because right now we are completely out of sync with those rhythms. So our task with HOLI NADA is to discover which packets of information in the network are out of tune with the correct time. And through HOLI NADA, the idea is to calibrate that data, that information, through the exact moments when time is real and not illusory.
Yes. Yes, I also wanted to say here that we do the days leading up to the Rainbow Bridge, even though we actually build the Rainbow Bridge every day, whether we're close to the solstice or the equinox or not. And we always invite you to come and do it with us all together. You can also do it from your home. And on the day of the solstice or the equinox, which this time will be June 21st, that's when we celebrate and manifest all together as a group at this specific point on Earth. But the Rainbow Bridge is the preparation to reach the great celebration of the manifestation of the void.
Exactly, yes. The Rainbow Bridge, is basically a harmonization that involves calibrating each of the chakras so that they are in the right tune and opening that channel of the inner dragon so that information can flow properly along that bridge within us. So that's why the idea is always to organize, whether online or in person, to organize activities in the days leading up to it so that we can all start tuning in to that story, to that calibration with the music to prepare ourselves for the task that comes next, which is the calibration of time and space during HOLI NADA. So that's why what we're doing this afternoon, organizing these events with the intention of being able to share, to be able to calibrate ourselves together and to create those spaces that many of you have always asked for, which is we want to meet again. Sometimes it goes beyond de hacer un evento o actividades o talleres o charlas. Es más el hecho de que al encontrarnos nos calibramos los unos a los otros. Al compartir el mismo espacio, el mismo tiempo, nos estamos calibrando los unos a los otros. Entonces, básicamente nosotros estamos disponiendo el espacio o la organización y nuestro tiempo para hacer posible ese espacio de alquimia, ¿no?
Sí, y en cada solsticio y equinoccio conectamos también con una trinidad de los elementos. En marzo fue el fuego y ahora nos toca el agua, así que vamos, seguramente
Seguro va a
estar
llover
interesante.
porque es País Vasco, así que seguro va a llover.
Sí, sí, así que los que vengan en persona traigan paraguas o pilotos porque
Por si acaso,
seguro.
sí. Sí, algunas botas para la lluvia, por si acaso. Pero bueno, sí.
Sí, totalmente. Así que bueno, los invitamos a todos, a los que quieran venir. Yo ahora le voy a abrir el espacio a Guilla, si podemos todos alinearnos con lo que va a pasar en junio y que en realidad ya está sucediendo. Y les recuerdo que a todos los que se quieran sumar, venir en persona, que estén cerca de País Vasco o no y quieran venir, o a los que se quieran sumar desde donde estén, pueden ingresar a holinada.com. Están nuestros correos, todos nuestros contactos nos escriben y bueno, los guiamos por ahí y esperamos vernos todos en red. Es como dice Mati, siempre son encuentros de nosotros, de los que nos conocemos hace mucho, de los que no nos conocemos para nada y se están sumando y siempre, siempre es muy lindo. Y bueno, traigan paraguas. Yo con esto me
Traigan
despido.
paraguas.
Ese era el mensaje final.
El mensaje
Traigan
final es
paraguas.
traigan paraguas.